So yes, again, thank you so much for sharing this moment with me. I started Phenomenal Speaks a while back, actually, first as a platform in my heart that then moved to a platform in my head. And the reason that it started in my heart, and that's kind of what I wanted to share today before I move toward just some questions about Phenomenal Speaks and actually the full Journey with Franda group. Uh, so, a little bit about me. First of all, I'm Franda. I live in Dubai. I've been living in the Middle East now for now 15 years. And being here has been both challenging and rewarding at the same time. The first 13 years I was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and I worked in healthcare at that time. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to come to Dubai and really be able to live my dream and was given the opportunity to be able to do that, which was absolutely amazing. And when I look back on it now, I realize the trust that had to go along with that, not only on my part, but also trusting Coach Transformation Academy for allowing me to come here. So that said, Journey with Franda actually originated 2015, I think it was, on the first trip that I was in Saudi Arabia, and I wanted just really a few people to come over to experience the Middle East. In the process of that, it ended up being 34 wonderful women that came over and experienced Dubai and Egypt with me. Fast forward to now, and a lot of things happened in between that time. And a lot of what happened is what created Phenomenal Speaks, which is the platform that we're on now. During the time of traveling back and forth to the U.S. while living in the Middle East, my mother became ill, and then in the process of that, my best friend Audrey became ill with the exact same thing. So putting all that together and listening to them, and when I talk about what how Phenomenal Speaks came about, was not because I feel like I'm phenomenal, but it really came about because those two phenomenal women. My mother did not get to travel much. I took her on her first flight, I think it's 2013, and I actually told her a tale and told her that she had to go with me to Atlanta in order for me to be able to get my global entry, which was not true, but I knew that would be the only way I would ever get her on an airplane. So she flew for the first time when she was 78 or 79 years old or something like that. And even with that, it made me realize just how small the world is when we don't expand ourselves. Also in the process, my best friend Audrey, now she had traveled many places and spoke different languages, and she had a different view of the world. But in the end, they both passed away of pancreatic cancer. And during the time of their journeys to transition, especially Audrey, she shared a lot with me about what she wanted to see me do. She was a person, both of them actually, but both of them had a vision for me that I did not have for myself. And they definitely saw way more in me than I saw in myself. So and it took me a couple of years now. Audrey's been gone almost 2 years now. But it's taken me that amount of time to really figure out what I wanted to do in life. And the main thing that I wanted to do was honor both of them by being as phenomenal as I could be. So part of Phenomenal Speaks, which is called Phenomenal Speaks: A Journey with Franda, is about the journey. It's about the journey to life, the journey for voices. So when I talk about bringing those 34 wonderful women over for a journey to the Middle East, I also realized that there's so many things that we could do that we haven't done. And you know what? If you really take a moment and you really think about it, like I had to do, we can do a lot. Sometimes it means just stepping out and taking that chance. And I had the wonderful blessing of being able to go back and read some of the journals that Audrey wrote. And in the process of those journaling over many years, so I've known her for over 20 years, in those journals, she would write her vision for what she saw me doing later on. She wasn't talking about her vision for herself. She was talking about the vision she saw in me because she felt truly that I was not going and reaching for my full potential. So, and later on, I'll talk about how I became a coach and a recovery coach and all of that part of the journey. But the beginning of this journey started with those two women. They showed me that there is potential and possibility in every single one of us. But another thing that they also show me is that there's so much potential in our phenomenal voices. So believe me, I went back and forth, trying to make a decision, or not really trying to make a decision, but just committing myself to stepping out, getting over my anxiety. I suffer with anxiety, have panic attacks, and to be able to get past that, to start something that would give a voice to not the voiceless. We all have a voice, but give a voice to those that may not want to speak up all the time. So that is how Phenomenal Speaks came about. So let me tell you a little bit about what Phenomenal Speaks is. And I'm going to read a little bit because I wrote it out. So Phenomenal Speaks, A Journey with Franda, is a platform for sharing, for giving, for connecting, and for learning. Our phenomenal voices come from all over the world, just like even in this room right now. We have people from all over the world, which is so awesome. And I do appreciate every one of you. Every phenomenal voice, our phenomenal voices are multicultural, multi generational, multiracial, and a made up word for me, multi phenomenal. Our voices give life to words, to our dreams, to our aspirations, to our potential, and to our possibilities. My vision for this platform was really created when I learned about the power of the phenomenal voice from those two ladies that I was telling you about earlier, my mom and Audrey. Now, I want you to keep in mind that that Audrey passed away 7 months, 11 days, and 4 hours after my mother. So the information that was shared by the two of them over that time was something that I needed to chronologize really, so that I could make sure that it stayed important and stayed relevant to me. So I realized that we all have a voice, irrespective of our economic status, our race, and our gender, or our gender identity, actually. And our stories are all amazing. And then another thing that pushed me into moving forward. On December the 10th of 2020, so only 3 months back, less than 3 months back actually, I woke up and I could not walk. I was in so much pain that I shared it with someone. I would rather have 10 children at one time than go through the amount of pain that I was going through at that time. I could only crawl around my house. And I also shared that I think my dogs thought it was 24-hour play date because all they did was just jump around and jump on top of me and everything. But what I learned about that was that waiting for tomorrow, waiting for when things are going to be better, when you're going to be comfortable, we all have the waiting for wins. And I realized if I continued to wait, I had no clue what I was waiting on. But what I did know is that when I woke up and I could not walk for 3 days, that if ever I got past that pain and had my mobility back, I was going to honor it with everything within my being. So that is actually how Phenomenal Speaks came about. The journey of those two wise women, as well as that time when someone just sits you down and you really have to look at life and what you want to do with it. So another part of Phenomenal Speaks is what is called, or another part of Journey with Franda is called my Personal Empowerment Facilitation Series. Phenomenal Speaks is actually a part of that. But also, what will be coming along is travel, because I want to empower people to see the world as I see it. I want to share my world with others. So, part of that is empowering those that may not want to travel right now. And I'm sure I understand why that is, but empowering those that want to travel, maybe by the end of the year, but empowering those that may be a little afraid or may not understand about coming to the Middle East or whatever, but empowering those to take others to take that chance. Take that chance on yourself to do what you dream of. So, all of this is why Phenomenal Speaks came along. Now, I have been so blessed. My first speaker, she's here today, Kendra Newman. When I when I thought about Phenomenal Speaks, she was the first person I thought about. And the reason for that is because I have watched her become phenomenal. I watched her settle within herself and realize the power within her. So I wanted her to come and talk about her book. I wanted her to come and talk about her journey. I wanted her to come and share her story. Now, there's some of you that's in the room right now that I want to do the same. I want you to come and share your story. And it's not just about females, male and female, anyone. So that is how Phenomenal Speaks started. That's the thought process behind Phenomenal Speaks. So now I'll move into coaching, which is another thing that I do. So I am a coach and a coach trainer and a coach mentor. I moved into coaching because a wonderful gentleman by the name of Dr. Harris Saeed trusted me with the program until that point he was doing on his own. And he trusted me to lead the online program for Coach Transformation Academy, which is what I do right now. I am also a recovery coach. I won't get into too much history about that, but there was someone in my life that was dealing with addiction. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the language of addiction. I didn't understand the language of depression, all of which this person was dealing with. So I made it my mission to understand it and also to help others to understand it as well. We always say, or not always, but a lot of people will say if someone has an addiction problem or even depression, just get over it. Just stop. Just don't do it anymore. You'll be fine. What I've come to learn is if it was just that easy, there'd be no addicts. If it was just that easy, there'd never be anything as treatment for chronic depression or clinical depression. If it was that easy, someone like me who suffers with anxiety would not have waited until I was at the age I am now, which I'm not going to share my age. But someone like me would not have waited this long before I started to live my dream. So I say all that to say, why did I go into recovery coaching? Because I am in recovery. I'm recovering from grief. I'm recovering from anxiety and having panic attacks. So I say that to make sure that people and everyone understands that recovery is not just about drugs and alcohol. Recovery encompasses anything that takes over your life and takes you out of what you know as normal. So this is how this journey, and it's still continuing, of course, but this is how this journey started and how it is still continuing right now. Now, just briefly before I answer some of these questions that I have and some of the questions that you may have as well, just briefly, I will also share I have two sons, two wonderful sons. And anytime I end any of these platforms, I honor my two kings. Those guys are also my reason to exist. Everything about them makes me smile. I can think about them even when I'm down and I just smile. They experienced a lot of my journey that I sometimes wish they had not, to be honest. But they have always loved me, they've always supported me, and they've always been my best cheerleaders. So I'm so proud to call Eric and Justin my sons. So thank you now for allowing me to share. And now I'm going to look at some of these questions and also um, any questions that you have. If you're here on the Zoom, you can either put it in the chat or I'm going to unpin myself so I can see everybody. So if you want to come on camera, I would absolutely love it. So Sana, Donna, Marilyn, Phyllis, Rena. Hi, Rena.
How are you?
I am absolutely awesome and at peace. How are you?
I'm doing really good today. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's truly phenomenal how you got here. So thank you. I appreciate it.
So tell me, what was your question?
So I'm really curious to know um, about your journey to moving to Dubai, a whole nother country. Um, my daughter just moved to Mexico with my two grandchildren. And it is something that I've always wanted to do myself is to live in another country. And anyone that can just pick up and move to a whole different culture, environment, country, I have a lot of respect for because it takes a lot of courage and strength to do that. So I'm curious to know about your journey in moving to another country and how you adapted.
You know what? I'm still adapting after 15 years. No, thank you. That is an awesome question. And as I shared, when I first moved here, I actually moved to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and I was still working in healthcare at that time. And the decision was almost an easy one, but a hard one. I needed to make some changes in my life, and we always say it's a funny thing that we do say for when we move to somewhere like Saudi Arabia, which was a closed country at that time, and we would always sit around at the hospital and say, you know what, people came here because we're running away from something, because no one can get to us here. It's a closed country, and it's however many hours of a phone call and very expensive, so we can always say we couldn't call back or whatever. And I think for me though, that move was not running from, but running to. It was an opportunity for me not to have any distractions and to really be able to figure out who I am, who I was, or who I am, and to be able to live in that reality. Now, did I do it immediately? Absolutely not. I don't think that I really got a full grasp of who I was until I moved to Dubai because I had the protection of Riyadh. And every day was very, very well planned. I had to go to work for 12 hours and all of that. So taking and having the courage to move away, I don't know that it was as courageous as it seems. Um, that said, there's no regrets in doing it. It was a decision that I needed to make in order for me to become whole. And the funny thing is when we live within our norm, at whether it's at home in the States or whatever, because we don't have to leave the country to step out of our norm, but we need to step out of our norm. And when we do, we realize again that there's so much potential within us, within our hearts. There's so much potential there. But our everyday life sometimes just mutes it. But then when we go somewhere that we've never been before, and for me, I did not speak the language. Um, we had to wear abayas. I wasn't ready for that. There was a lot of cultural things that I needed to learn. I'm from the South. We hug and touch everybody, which was not, that was totally against the cultural norm. And I'm walking around, doing that, touching people and, you know, hugging folks when I meet them. And it didn't take me long to realize that was probably not my best move. But being able to learn that culture, and the great thing about it is not only did I learn the culture, I love it. I absolutely learned to love it. Even to the point that when I come home to the States, I have trouble adjusting because the culture I live in is a little bit safer in some ways. I come home and I go out to the grocery store at 11 o'clock at night, which probably is not my best idea. Here, it's normal. So there's a lot of adjustment that goes on with being moving to a different country, a different culture where the rules are different. And even sometimes the punitive actions are different to the point that it's just not a good idea to do some things. So I hope that answered your question. And if you're thinking of moving to another country, come on over to Dubai. Let me show you around. Let me show you why you would love the Middle East, because you would.
It sounds good, Frenda. It's interesting because my daughter's journey was she wasn't running from something, she was running to something. So that resonated with me. But thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
And we will see you over here. I'm predicting that already.
Hi, my name is Phyllis Morrissey, and I have known Franda since we were in elementary school.
Elementary school.
So please excuse the background because I'm listening to my grandson. I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm listening to my grandson's baseball game in Florida, and I'm trying to get on Franda and do my AKA thing. So I have three things going at one time. So please forgive me if you hear all this noise in the background. But, my experience with Franda is absolutely amazing. So we've known each other since elementary school. We
Don't
lived,
say how many years now.
Okay, I didn't. I just said since elementary school. And we lived around the corner. I left Greensboro, North Carolina at 14 years old to go to an all-white girls' school, boarding school in Richmond, Virginia. Talk about culture shock. That was truly a culture shock. But it really wasn't, because prior to going to um, St. Catherine's boarding school. My family moved when I was very young in the first grade. And from the first to the third grade, we moved to Wilmington, Massachusetts, where we were the only Black family in Wilmington, Massachusetts, because of my dad's job. So that, talk about culture shock, that was a culture shock. But when you're that young, you don't really know until someone calls you a nigger, and says, go back to where you belong, nigga, and then go back to where you came from. And I'm thinking, I came from North Carolina, but I belong here. I couldn't grasp that concept in the third grade. But I had a very caring and sympathetic teacher who kind of walked me through it, taught me through it kind of experience. Well, while I was gone, Franda had my first godson. And Franda made me a godmother at 18 years old. And it is the greatest reward and the greatest, let me see, how do I say this? I'm going to say hardship, because I never got to grow up with my godson, because when I left home at 14, I never came back to North Carolina. And so even though, friend and I still stayed in contact and touch kind of stuff, and then she led her life, I led my life, and I didn't have that experience to be there for my godson. But you know what? Life takes those turns. Lost Franda for a long time, and then knew where she was, but did not know how to contact her. Thank you for Facebook, because Facebook really changes things. Exactly. Found her on Facebook. We're back together again, and it was like yesterday. When we first connected, we talked for over 2.5 hours, like we were talking on the phone to each other across the street, literally. Yes, nothing exactly. was missed. We just recapped our lives together, and I was astounded. And I knew that Franda was in Dubai because we have common friends, and they told me where she was, but I just could not fathom Franda, an only child, leaving her mama. Franda don't leave her mama. You know what I mean? She don't leave her mama. Like, Franda left her mama, and she's in Dubai, and she's happy, and she's healthy, and she's amazing. Luckily, we were able to reconnect a couple of times when we hit North Carolina at the same time, and just start fresh all over again like it was yesterday. And I love every minute of it. But I loved her courage. I loved her courage. I loved her courage to go and do the things that she knew she needed to do. Because even though she had a wonderful job in Greensboro and could be the best nurse ever, she knew that her experience would be that much better away from home. And she took that leap of faith, and she did it. And look at her now. She's absolutely amazing. I'm going to stop talking before I start crying, friend. Okay.
Don't you dare start crying. I love you, Phyllis. You know that so much, so much. And there's so many other stories she could tell too, but I won't even allow her to do that right now. Because we did have some rebellious times together as well. So thank you for sharing.
I'd like to say a few things.
Hey, sweetness.
Hey, so I've known Franda all our lives.
This is my cousin.
My first cousin. She, her dad and my dad were brothers. Her dad was
start crying.
Her dad was the baby. Every summer we'd come and visit. And when her dad passed, when I was 12, we lost touch. And I still talked about you every day, Franda, like we were right there together. And I remember after losing you for all those years, when we finally connected about 5 or 6 years ago in Vegas, I felt like my life started all over again because I missed you so much. And when we talk, it's almost like our lives paralleled, other than the fact that you don't mind hopping on a plane and I'm scared of planes. That's the and I know you want me to get to Dubai. I just found out I've been left out of an equation this year. So I am working on my passport for you, just so you know.
Love you.
I want to come and hug you and see you and drink in the culture. But I'm just so proud of you. I'm proud of the woman that you are. You look amazing. You are amazing. We both talk about our sons. She has 2, I have 3. and they're around my oldest and I think her middle son are around the same age, or the middle and the youngest. But hearing you talk about panic attacks, I don't think we ever really had that discussion, because I used to have them all the time. I literally thought I was dying
Mm.
every time I had a panic attack. And I didn't understand what was going on with me. My life was just spiraling. It was out of control. And people don't understand, nothing has to happen for you to have a panic attack. You could
Mhm.
be sitting perfectly still, watching television or driving your car, and you would have a panic attack. You would think you're dying. And I found a way to cope with that. My oldest son, I would pick up the phone and call him. He didn't know why I was calling him. I was calling him and just saying, "How you doing?" And just having that conversation with somebody that I loved brought me back down to where I needed to be. But I see you as an inspiration to me, because I'm thinking about my next chapter right now. Um, I love working in battered women's shelters. It is my passion. And I'm trying to figure out my life and how I can incorporate that into my life, so that that will be my next mission. That is my transition. I'm not going to stop until I do that. And I'm absolutely going to pick your brain, my love, to figure out how I need to do this. So I just want you to know that you are everything to me. And this woman right here has shown me so much in the time that we connected. And just thinking about swinging on the swings in the
All
backyard, and just
right, stop it. That's enough. That's enough.
I just love you so much, and I am so very proud of you, and I'm so glad I got on this call.
I'm
So
so glad you did too. And you are my main love, I tell you.
Joy, so you still in Greensboro?
no, I moved. I We lived in DC, and we would
Okay.
visit Greensboro every year. But what I did was I took a leap of faith and moved from DC all the way to San Diego 11 years ago.
Wow.
And I never regretted a moment of it. I'm here. All of my sons are here now. And I'm just having the time of my life. But I feel like
Okay.
I need
I
to.
think I need to get out there too.
You
So
do.
I'm going to move this forward just a little bit, so we won't run out of
Oh,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So I have one question here. It says, "How do I work through obstacles?" Mm, 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 mm. Oh, I had to stop and breathe on that one. You know, I don't actually. Um, I embrace obstacles now. Actually, I feel like every obstacle, everything that looks like an obstacle, really becomes some type of a blessing if we look at it that way. Now, do am I saying that everything that happens is, comes out great, comes out wonderful or whatever? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But what I do know and what I do believe deep in my heart is that whatever obstacle, whatever thing that happens that kind of creates a road bump, or whatever, a speed bump in my life or in my world, it's not going to stay forever. What I do with it, how I handle it, how I let it resonate with me, and how I let it stay. And I think that's the biggest thing. And as a coach, I say this to my clients as well. Letting it stay. Sometimes we just kind of sit in our junk and we just kind of stay there because junk becomes comfortable. Well, I don't like clutter. And an obstacle is clutter to me. So I have to figure out how to get that out of the way. If I can't move it out of the way, then I need to figure out how to make it work for me. What will I learn? What will I do with it? How can I make it work for me? How can I help it? How can I use whatever it is to either grow me or sit my tail down? And sometimes I need to sit my tail down. When I couldn't walk, and yes, I probably should not have stayed in my apartment for 3 days, not being able to walk and not telling anyone that I could not walk. And Yvonne will tell you that she fussed at me about that. Um, but during that time, even that obstacle, even that speed bump was actually a lesson, a time of learning for me. I had never experienced that type of physical pain ever, ever, even with having children. I had never experienced that type of physical pain. Now, what was my learning from that? Because I was taking care of myself, I was walking twice a day, I was doing all the things that I needed to do to take care of myself. But was I doing all the things that I needed to do to take care of myself? So I really had to look at that and also realize, what is it physically that is going on that makes me need to sit down right now? So it gave me the opportunity to look at myself and look at a lot of things. And that's how Phenomenal Speaks came about. Being able to take that step and just go ahead and do it. So thank you for that question. So I have another question here. I wrote down some of the questions that came earlier. Um, what inspired me to pursue a career in coaching? Again, just seeing a career in coaching. Number one was because, number one, I've been giving advice and making suggestions or whatever forever. And actually, the funny part of the story is that I started off in psychology, and I thought I wanted to be a psychologist. And one day, Audrey and I were watching a movie about a hospital in New York called Bellevue Hospital. And I looked over at her and I was like, whew, I'm so glad I'm going to go into psychology, but I'm not going to work with people like that because they're crazy. And she looked at me and she said, so, as a psychologist, who exactly do you think you're going to be working with? And Marilyn, you know Audrey well enough to know just how her voice was when she said that. Who exactly do you think you're going to be working with? And her being the honest soul that she is, she looked at me and she goes, I think you might want to re-examine that major. I don't know if this is going to be the one for you. And it was a very, very wise thing that she said, because that woman had the patience and the compassion, everything that I hope I have now. 20 years ago, when she had it and was perfecting it, I was not even close. Not even close. Not even with her. I wish I could have been more compassionate with her at that time. And I wish I could have been more understanding with her at that time. I wish I would have understood the journey that and the struggle that she was going through every single solitary day. But what I can do now, with whatever time I have left, is to make sure that I help others to understand that struggle, and that I help others to understand how it feels to be torn between two worlds, both of which you want to be a major part of. So yeah, most my coaching came from that part of my journey. So I had another question here. Um, what is your secret to always looking great and positive before every session? Oh my goodness. I don't know. I think I've had a session recently that I was not looking great or positive. But I do hope that I can, because the thing about it is, when you're coaching, you're serving. So you need to be able to give your best self at any and every point. So if I'm down, feeling down, looking down, or whatever, then I'm not giving my best self, which means I'm not serving my client. So I need to be able to detach myself from what's going on with me at that time so that I can serve my client. Then I can go back in the corner and cry if that's what I need to do. But I need to make sure that I can give what I need to give at the time it needs to be given.
I'm
So
glad the
thank you.
friend
That was an awesome question. What'd you say?
I'm glad Franda got into coaching because I'm a Facebook fanatic and I just put my whole life on Facebook and I try to put it on there very quietly, just very subtly. And I put something on Facebook one day that I thought was very subtle. But my friend called me from Dubai. It was probably midnight there because it was probably, and she said, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "What do you mean, what's wrong with me?" She said, "There is something that you need to talk to me about, something you need to tell me, and I'm here to listen." I'm like, "Friend, I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "I read your post." I said, "My post didn't say anything that would make you call me." She said, "I read through your post. So let's sit down and let's talk." And we did.
And then what did I say? And take that post down.
Take that post.
And take that post down. Definitely. Thank you for reminding me of that. So see, let's see. I'll do a couple more before time to end. Um, what is my dream? Hmm. It's gonna sound so cliche, but it really truly is that the platform of Phenomenal Speaks and the platform of personal empowerment facilitation touches every single person that it is supposed to touch. Whether it's 20 people or 20,000 people, which would be nice, but that it touches every single person that is supposed to touch. That means that my journey is complete. And the thing about it is that our lives are made, right? We're supposed to share. We're supposed to give. We're supposed to connect. If we were supposed to be on an island, there would only need to be a certain number of people, to one person per each island, right? But instead, God created so many of us over and over and over and over again and made no mistakes. That's the best part. Made absolutely no mistakes. We make mistakes. God made no mistakes. So, because of that, my dream is to have this platform, or my dream, at least for this platform, is for people to be able to share their voices authentically with no fluff, just be able to share. So let's see, there was one in the chat before I go. Oh, I like this one. How is traveling to places like Africa, the Middle East, etc.? How has traveling to places like Africa, the Middle East, etc., shaped the way you view your own culture and identity? Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. And to be honest with you, I love that question because a lot of people ask me, why do you only specialize? You have a travel company. Why do you only specialize in the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia? Why? Why not the Bahamas? Which is, the Bahamas are nice, but that's not where my heart is. When I go to Cairo, I feel like I'm at home, except that it's kind of crowded. So I'm at home with a whole lot of people. But when I go to Cairo, I feel like I'm at home. When I go to Jordan, I feel like I'm greeting family. When I go to the Dead Sea, I feel like I'm always supposed to be there. And I'm afraid to swim. So to be able to go there and not worry about drowning really is kind of powerful for me. But when I go to Petra and I see those magnificent, I can't even describe it. To stand in front of Petra and look up and realize I need to keep looking because it's so vast. When I go to Egypt and I'm standing in front of the pyramids and I'm still trying to figure out how they got there. Or I go to the step pyramids, which not many people go to because they always stay, pretty much stay in Giza. But Audrey and I went to our first trip to Egypt. We went to all the places that most people don't go. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to go. She didn't want to go to all the tourist places. She wanted to see those too, but she wanted to go to the other places that most people don't go. And I thought, this is so crazy. But then after we went to some of these places, we went to Alexandria, but not just Alexandria. We went to homes in Alexandria. We went to Aswan and we went to homes in Aswan and Luxor. We experienced way more than we would. And our poor tour guide, every day he would say, Audrey would say to him, I want to go to some place other people don't go. He go, but ma'am, I want to go to, and this was every day, poor guy. But we went to these different places and we saw these different things. And that's when I realized that my culture and my identity, number one, was built there. It started there. When I go to the Nubian village, I understand now what it means to be a Nubian. And if I didn't understand, the little ladies there, they will definitely explain it to you quickly. But when I go there and I experience those places, that's when I understand my culture and my identity. And being able to do that, being able to experience people whose skin color is the same as mine, but live an entirely different life with entirely different norms, entirely different values in some ways, right? Because as I grew up in America, a lot of it was about what can we get? What can we make? What can we earn? I got to have more than the next person. And then you go to Cairo and you see 15 people sitting around enjoying one meal with their hands, no utensils, and laughing and talking and sharing. And then you get an understanding of what culture really means and what identity really means. And that we cannot identify ourselves in a bubble. The only way we can understand who we are and how we identify ourselves is by looking at others and understanding others. And a lot of people don't want to think that. We want to think that we're all, I can just make it on my own. I can do everything on my own. No, you can't. No, you can't. And guess what? I don't want to anymore. And I do live on my own here in Dubai. I don't have my family here. I don't have my sons here with me. I wish I did, but I don't. So I am kind of on my own, but I have a wonderful group of friends that definitely look out for me, take care of me, and make sure I'm doing okay. I have Harris Saeed, who, if he hasn't heard from me in a few days, will call up and make sure that I'm doing okay. Just checking on you. But we need each other. So my culture and my identity is based on the fact that the culture and identity of others has created what I call culture and identity. And it's created a world that's way bigger than I'll ever understand. But I certainly want to try every single day to have a better understanding of the person in front of me, whoever that is. Whether it's the taxi driver, the guy on the little motorbike thing, or whatever. I want to understand them. I want to respect them. And I never, ever, ever want to dishonor another human being as long as I live. Ever. I don't want to dishonor their journey. I don't want to dishonor their affliction. I don't want to dishonor their addiction. I don't want to dishonor their pathologies. I don't want to dishonor anyone's humanness for the rest of my life. If I can live the rest of my life without dishonoring another human being, regardless of who they are, regardless of their status, because status means absolutely nothing in the long run, absolutely zilch. Because you know what? No matter how much money you have or how much status you have, when you're laying in that hospital bed and you can no longer clean your own tail, somebody still has to do it, regardless of how you got there. So that might be kind of raw, but it's the truth. So don't let your dash be so important. Don't let your dash matter so much. We always talk about, well, it's what happens in the dash, when I was born and when I die, and it's what I do in the middle. Yeah, it does matter what you do in the middle. But the bottom line is somebody had to clean your tail when you came into this world. And chances are somebody's going to have to clean your tail before you go. So honor those that did it in the beginning and honor those that may have to do it in the end. And whoever comes between, honor them too, because you never know. They may be that person that's there in the end. So I do thank you, every single one of you. And I honor every single one of you for taking the time to take this time with me. And I hope that some of you, if not all of you, will come back and share your phenomenal voice. Because keep in mind, we all have a phenomenal voice. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for joining. You honestly do not know, especially those of you here in Zoom and those of you on Facebook Live, you really don't know how much this moment means to me right now, because you took your time to come here with me. So thank you, and thank you. And as always, I give honor to my two kings. So thank you guys.
Thank you for having us, Franda. We love you. Good to
Love
see
you
each and every one
too.
of you. Hope we meet again.
Definitely. We're all going to meet again.
Thank you for everything.
Bye.
Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye.
Thank
Phyllis.
you.
Thanks, Brenda. So good. It was so good.